Hi, this is Joris Peels with 3D Printing News Unpeeled. At 3dprint.com, we're trying to bring you the most succinct, most relevant, updated 3D printing news. And we've got a couple of stories for you today. Total four that we think are, well, kind of important and kind of relevant for you. We start with the fourth story that is one of those stories that you kind of notice and you kind of don't notice, and maybe a lot of people missed. So the story really it comes from an article we saw on SME, and that's kind of like the title is Astro America takes a driving seat. So you've probably heard of the AM Forward initiative, which is a Biden government initiative to kind of have a compact or like kind of a working together of large companies in order to strengthen the AM or the 3D printing supply chain for the United States of America. The companies are GE Additive, Honeywell, Lockheed, Raytheon, Siemens Energy. And the idea is that they will work together to empower essentially their supply chain in order to adopt 3D printing. So their knowledge, their standards, their development of working together and stuff will mean that small to medium businesses in the US are able to 3D print more things better, which ultimately would mean more technological leadership for the US and at the same time, more resilience in the US supply chain and the ability to make, very critical defense related things in the United States. Now, this initiative is being run by something called Astro America, which is kind of a brain trust of really, really experienced 3D printing people. And you're probably thinking, wait a minute, didn't we have something very similar called America Makes? And we did have something very similar called America Makes. It still exists. America Makes is being administered by the National Center for Defense Manufacturing and Machining. And that initiative has been it's been underway for I think about 10 years or something like that now. And they've been doing a lot of stuff and coordinating America's research and development of AM. Now, um, the interesting bit is that no one really, all of a sudden, Astro America came up with managing the AM Forward program, and then nobody really figures out what America makes, or nobody knew where America Makes fits in. Um, So there was a quote from the SME article, which is like, AM Forward also has a role for America Makes, the Manufacturing USA Institute focused on AM to help develop standards in education and workforce development curriculum for 3D printing. So this is interesting. Is this kind of AM Forward trying to get primacy through its relationship with these big companies, or are they going to compete, or are they going to work happily together? Watch this space. This is going to be, if you're a US based company in AM, this is going to be a very, very crucial kind of battle slash frenemies slash kind of working together kind of thing. Um, and it's very notable because, well, private organizations are essentially managing the United States 3D printing AM strategy. And they have differing interests and they have different kind of ways of looking at this business and ways of looking at what's needed. So this is a very crucial, especially if you work in the defense sector, but also outside of it, just given how much money the US directs through the defense establishment at research, how important things like Oak Ridge National Labs and things are. This is a really crucial type of relationship, and it's a kind of very exotic type of way of managing your national additive manufacturing strategy and or outsourcing it to kind of two very different organizations. So watch this space. It's more of a kind of like a kind of news article like, wait a minute, guys, there is something going on here. And I think definitely if you work in aerospace defense in the US, you need to be friends with both of these organizations. I think it's I think we really would recommend that because one or both of them could have their hands on the spigot of all of a lot of the government money being directed at AI. The next story, the number three story, is Kraft Health raises 1.42 million Singapore dollars in a pre-Series A round. So Kraft Health is a really one of my favorite 3D printing startups. I think there are only two 3D printing startups that are really making a 3D printer for pharmaceuticals. One is uh, um, FabRx, and the other one is Kraft Health. Um, this round, it's around Kraft Health was looking for a while, and they've closed it, so it's a significant step forward for them. And these printers have a enormous potential. First, a little bit about the round. It was led by Mistletoe, Singapore, Arcray CVC. Angel investors was notable angel investors, Dr. Jenny Chen, who's we interviewed a bunch of times. She's the founder of 3D Heals, which is kind of a network of all the doctors and medical people working on 3D printing. So very much smart money, I would think. So Kraft Health is making a 3D printer that can make pharmaceuticals. They're working on things like polypills. Um, so imagine like a pill within a pill within a pill. Like one agent could do something, and then another agent could do something else, or different release profiles. So imagine like a pill that would in the first 24 hours dispense some material, and then for the next week dispense another material, for example. Other things like is work on the release kinetics of some medicines, in order to make something act faster, for example, or to delay its release to a certain time. Things like that is working on. It's working on both the printers and two paths to market. One is for pharmaceuticals, which I guess would also be research. You could use this in a research setting as well. That's the immediate market, and later on would be a market more for producing these things, maybe on demand, maybe patient specific. But the other path to market is also very interesting as nutraceuticals, or kind of this nutrients, kind of personalized nutrition kind of space as well. They want to be a producer there. And that's, of course, from a regulatory side, is much, much easier. It's another market. But imagine also, personalized nutrition for people who are really all about their health, for these data logging kind of these health hacker people as well. This would seem to be very something that they could be into. Imagine like personalized health for athletes, or for people in old folks' homes who have all sorts of ailments, and where we can give them very specific health stuff every single day that they would need. I mean, these things represent multi billion-dollar opportunities, and one of the largest generations ever is going to end up in elderly care at home or in institutions. They're all going to have lots and lots of medicines and lots of nutritional challenges. So managing that, or helping to reduce costs and automating that partially, is in itself a gigantic opportunity. The company aims to use this money for a clinical trial on pharmaceuticals, which will help the kind of stave the use of this device by pharmacy companies, and maybe in further drug development. And they're also going to explore more of their nutrient market. So great development. I think this is an area that's really, really underinvested, underlooked at, underreported. We do what we can here at 3dprint.com to try to get people to look at it, because I think 3D printed pharmaceuticals could be very, very huge. The number two news item is about Czinger and Aston. This comes to us from the LinkedIn of Lucas Czinger, and also some other news articles. What Lucas Czinger says is very excited to see some of our OEM programs come into the public light. The Divergent team has had the great pleasure of working with one of the world's great brands, Aston Martin Lagonda, on existing next generation production performance vehicles. So that's a comment, really. Czinger is a high end kind of hypercar, sports car. Is made with a lot of 3D printed components. What is the takeaway of this quote is some of our OEM programs come to light. So this implies that Czinger, in order to offset costs and spread its AM expertise, is developing and producing parts for several, or at least two, OEM programs, and one of these is Aston Martin. That's a very nice strategy on saving costs. It's a very nice strategy on spreading your knowledge and gaining and partnerships in the AM industry. For a company like Aston Martin Lagonda, very storied past, but very little volume, is a comparatively small company. Investing in AM is going to be very difficult, even though they work together with AM, or with Formula One and other racing categories. It's going to be very difficult for a relatively small car company to invest in AM to the likes, to the tune of what Volkswagen is going to do, and their expertise that is then going to be available for Lamborghini and Porsche, if Porsche indeed still is part of Volkswagen. So, for Aston Martin, these kind of like these kind of platforms and working together with Czinger really makes sense, and it really does make sense for Czinger as well. Some electric hypercar companies have also specialized with taking their technology and taking it to much larger, different firms. So I think it's an interesting way of working together. I think it's a tidbit that really would make some people in the AM business, prick up the ears a little bit, and try to see if this is maybe a way in. Also, a lot of people have been trying to penetrate the automotive 3D printing business for a long time. For Czinger to get this far and work on a platform that's going to go into production is quite the coup for a relatively late start and a relatively upstart and relatively small company in this space. I myself would also look at businesses like Punkel, PANKL, and then businesses that are really very experienced in printing car parts for Formula One and performance and that kind of thing. And it would be, but also for a company like that, it would be interesting. Like, wait a minute, we operate as a service. The Zinger guys are now competing with us or doing this alongside us. Now, what actually happened? So the Aston Martin is coming out with a DBR 22. This is kind of like a one of few kind of limited edition vehicle made by what's called their Q division. And has a carbon fiber body, 5.2-liter twin turbo V12 with 700 horsepower. Now, what's nice for us is that it has, and as a quote, an entirely 3D printed rear subframe. Wow, that's a sizable component. We're seeing, a lot of people are thinking of brackets and custom components. Frame, chassis type components are kind of rare just because of fatigue, strength issues, and also cost of these larger scale components. What they've done here, is really, I thought, actually the diamond in this rough of a story, let's say, where in the quote they say individual components are printed from aluminum and then bonded together to create the complete assembly. So first off, aluminum printing, we know in powder bed fusion, aluminum is very fast to print. So you can print a lot of aluminum in your machine. So it's very cheap material because it's so fast to print. So it makes a lot of sense for them. It's lightweight materials, of course. Um, there's a lot of other reasons why aluminum wouldn't make sense, but that's okay. Um, but what I like about this is the fact that they're apparently not welding these components together, which would add weight, of course, or they're not printing the entire component because, of course, that would be too big. So what they're doing is gluing these components together. That's similar to what happened all these years ago with the Lotus Elise, where they glued the components, the Norsk Hydro components, and they then glued them together to save money on welds, and then ended up making this very light sports car. So the idea of gluing 3D printed components together is maybe something that, or bonding them together is maybe something that a lot of people wouldn't immediately consider. But given our if you're looking at structural components, you're going to have, some problems with getting that thing to fit in the 3D printer. So this kind of makes sense, especially in a sports car platform. I thought that was very, very interesting, personally. Um, they are talking about future low volume model production. Now, this is in light with certain hypercar manufacturers using 3D printed components because it's low volume, very specific designs. We're seeing more work in racing. We're seeing more work in low volume cars. We're seeing more work, undisclosed work in high volume automobiles as well. So this is another good news thing, and 3D printing, I think. The number one story, which is the printer HM. Now, this is a story that I missed completely. So my apologies, but I think you missed it completely as well. So I'm bringing it to you anyway. Um, the printer HM is an article in Nature, and I think it came out, like, the article came out I think a month ago, and I just happened to I have a kind of certain search strings that I check, and it just randomly came up. This is and you think you would notice a Nature Nature paper about 3D printing, really. You know, I feel a bit bad about this, but apparently I missed it. There's a group of researchers at the University of Cambridge that come up with a hackable, multifunctional, modular extrusion printer for soft materials. It's a multi-print head, modular multi-print head, so you can replace them, put other things in it. They're trying to 3D print inks as well. And they're making that tunable by having like a modular UV accessory that could change that. The idea is to do non-planar printing, pick and place, dispense liquids. What their examples of the things that they want to print are soft actuators, functional hydrogels, anatomical models that are really true to form. And they want it to be hackable. They want it to be open. They want it to be affordable. And I adore this. So years and years ago, we had the Fab at Home printer, which was like $3,000 or something at the time, and it could dispense soft materials. And Hod Lipsum and other people, Evan Malone, were doing amazing work with this thing. Now, because it was $3,000 as opposed to $300 that the RepRap printers were, there was not a lot of like a big community around it that was helping to drive this thing forward and to drive adoption. And so everybody congregated on the RepRap printer. Now, the result of this is, of course, that indirectly we got MakerBot because of this. Indirectly we got Ultimaker because of this, and it really transformed 3D printing. and for a filament into a filament technology for most of the printers. Um, Now, film is of course great for making relatively dimensionally accurate, tough parts really inexpensively at home, but we're missing out on so much. I personally have told the story before, but I personally read an article in 2004 by Hald Lipson and Evan Malone about a printer that made soft materials. They were printing actuators and batteries, and they printed a little flipper-based robot back then. And imagine that. Now, so many years later, right? This is the thing that paper inspired me to get into 3D printing, by the way. And now I still can't do that at home, right? Because we're all working with filament and we're working with, well, now we have carbon fiber and all sorts of other stuff, but we've missed this soft material. So I think this team is amazing to pick up on this opportunity. I think it's amazing to make something that's this ambitious, and imagine putting this in a lab. Imagine the kind of things you could do with this in a university lab, or imagine the type of things you could do in the office or at home with a soft material printer. Now, I don't know if they can get the community around it and the investment and get this to work. Um, but the idea of democratizing soft material printing in very different materials, very different viscosities, very different types of materials, very different arenas, to me is super exciting. And I know this is one of these things where I'm like going to be really, really excited about it, and then a couple of people I know will be amazingly excited about it, and then not a lot of other people would be. So I hope that this gets legs and this really kind of this grows, and this becomes much, much more prevalent and a really going concern kind of thing, because this is a fantastic opportunity. It's called the or printer.hm, printer HM. Anyway, guys, thank you for listening today. My name is Joris Peels, and this is another episode of 3D Printing Unpeeled with 3dprint.com. Thank you.